Thank you for joining us, Commissioner. Now, with the recent migration challenge, how has this affected the EU's budgetary forecast? And how is the EU going to respond to the need for more financial resources to deal with the migration challenge?
It is the biggest crisis we face, and for this reason we concentrate our full attention to it. We have, since the beginning of the year, doubled the funding that goes to deal with the refugee crisis in Europe and to help people in the countries where they come from. We started with 4.5 billion euros for these two purposes, help member states where migrants and especially refugees arrive, and help the countries where they originate from. Today we have 9.2 billion euros. How did we do that? By very seriously reassessing what we currently have as priorities, where we can change the schedule of implementation, where we can move money, and by using fully the flexibility built in our budget. During the last budget negotiations, it was the European Parliament primarily that insisted for a budget that has more flexibility. And today we all are grateful that it is there, because it allows us to shift resources very quickly to be effective in doing what? What do we do with this money? Help member states with reception capacity. We have created the so-called hotspots, some here in Italy, in Greece. So where there is big flow of arrivals, there is immediately help to register people and then to accommodate them. Secondly, much more significantly help the countries where the refugees come from, Lebanon, Jordan, Turkey. So people would not be desperate to have to take on the dangerous journey to Europe. And thirdly, to build more capacity for the communities where refugees are going to be, so they are not overwhelmed. Here in Europe, they are not overwhelmed by them.
Okay, and moving on from migration, one of your targets as Commissioner was to increase the number of women in senior and middle management to 40% within the Commission. So what strategies are you implementing to achieve this target?
The most important objective here is to identify women with high potential, but then also mentor them and encourage them to apply. And we are very successful. Since the beginning of our mandate, I'm the one that announces new appointments at level of director. And we are around 50-50 this year in terms of men and women appointed in director positions. We have increased modestly the number of women director generals. Why modestly? Because our pipeline of deputy director generals was almost non-existent. So now we are going to have a big number of new deputy director generals appointed, and we are working very hard to encourage qualified women to apply. As a senior woman, I have lived through my life from one job to another, being pulled for my hairs. Women do not easily put themselves forward. So big chunk of my work is to mobilize senior women to help other women to join our ranks.
And on the Sustainable Development Goals, which is another area you've written on quite widely, there was a report published by Oxfam this year which highlighted increasing levels of inequality and the disparity between the world's poorest and richest. So do you think that the Sustainable Development Goals can be successful in reducing inequality at a global level, which is hindering development for poor countries?
I do believe that they would help us to be more effective in public policy and with more empathy towards this question of inequality. But more than that, I think it would focus our attention of where support is most needed. And where is it? In the most fragile countries. What we have is a very clear core of extreme poverty concentrated in countries that are subject to wars or where climate change is hitting hardest. Today, 43% of the extreme poverty is in fragile states, and the projection is by 2030 it would grow to 62%. If we want this most dramatic expression of inequality, when people have no food and no shelter, no education for their children, the impact of extreme poverty, lack of opportunity, lack of hope, if we don't concentrate on that, even if we improve the rest of our averages, the job is not done. So we are looking at the bigger picture in Europe. Of course, we also have seen inequality growing, but Europe is not in that bad of shape. Actually, Gini coefficient in average in Europe during the crisis has gone slightly down, not up. What we have in Europe is pockets of worsening. The countries that have been in biggest trouble, like Greece and Spain, where unemployment has gone up, this is where inequality has deepened. In countries like Germany or Sweden, it has not gone. There isn't that much of a change. So my very simple message here is prioritize, prioritize, prioritize. Averages, they hide the story. They don't tell the story.
But given the ambition of these Sustainable Development Goals, and given, as you've said, the economic crises in Spain and Greece, are they realistic? Is securing the funding going to?
Well, there are two dimensions where funding is absolutely crucial if you want to have a better world for you, for the youth of the world. What we need to do is on climate change, we have to mobilize $100 billion to make sure that developing countries take on this low carbon path that is so crucial for them, but also for us. And the second big job we have to do is to raise money for development cooperation, because if we don't manage to invest in education and jobs and opportunities in poor countries, then fragility is going to deepen. There will be more wars, more refugees, more trouble for us. And these two big goals we have to do when our economies are not in great shape. And a big question for all of us in the richer countries is how to understand that our own well-being depends on our ability to help others, that helping others means helping ourselves. And for that we need actually more engagement from the public, and especially from the young people of Europe. It's your world. Make sure that we stand up for you. Keep us to fulfill our promises.
And on that note, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you.